Well, it's 9 o'clock, so let's get started. We have a really full agenda. It's a great agenda. We are so excited to have with us Brett Tingley, and we're going to be talking about really focusing on dyslexia and resources for our families and for our schools. But to get started here, I just want to welcome everyone, and our team from OSU is here. If you all want to turn on your cameras and wave hello. We'll be talking with you. We'll be breaking out and having chances to talk in our breakout rooms today. And thanks for introducing yourself in the chat. Good morning, Achilles. So you'll see here on our slide that you can rename yourself and introduce yourself in the chat. Great. All right, so here's our agenda for today. We are going to have our welcome, but then we're going to really have a special presentation about dyslexia. We are really excited to share with you new legislation in Ohio. And really it's exciting to me about that is that it was really the effort of families who wanted to see our schools improve for all students. And we have a really key person in that story for Ohio here to share with us, Brett Tingley. And also how our team is working together with schools, with the Department of Education, with Brett and other family members to develop resources for families and schools in Ohio to use so that together we are supporting our students. So we'll be, and Meredith Wellman will be leading that today. We're going to then we'll give you some updates from our center. We'll be in our work groups together. We've got 5 different work groups prepared that you'll be able to select from. We really then want to have a focused discussion with you around this problem of social media impacts. And so we'll have some good discussion around that. And we, of course, want to have some takeaways and best lines. So that's what we'll be doing in just a moment. So be thinking about that. Would you like to be the person who's sort of focusing on some takeaways from today and be able to report out at the end of this meeting? Or would you be someone who'd be listening for those best lines, those quotes that you think are great takeaways from this meeting? Be thinking about that. We're going to ask for someone to raise their hand in just a bit. But I want to pause now just for a moment and introduce someone new to you who is really important to us, and that is Letitia Humphreys. Letitia is the new Family and Community Engagement Coordinator at the Ohio Department of Education. Many of you probably remember Alexandra Nardo, who was a key contact for us and a point person at the Department of Education for family and community engagement. And the person in that role now is Letitia Humphreys. We've been really excited to be working with her. And are you here, Letitia, and can turn on your camera and your microphone?
I am here,
great,
just in time.
Letitia, we would please introduce yourself to the group.
Sure. Hi, Barbara, you did a great introduction. I'm Letitia Humphreys. I am new in this role as Family and Community Engagement Coordinator, and I am coming from a school building. I've been in schools for about 14 years at the capacity of a teacher and also administrator. So that is the experience that I bring. This is very new and different for me, but I'm really excited to be focusing on family engagement with such a vast group of people. And I look forward to working with you all today and just in the future. So thank you, Barbara.
Thank you. I think all of you know that over our going on 4 years of being a state advisory council, you have often provided great feedback and input and guidance to the Department of Education. And so we look forward to the things that Letitia brings to us for feedback and for her to be able to meet with you all and listen to you and your ideas. So we're glad to sort of have the chance to introduce you today. All right, so here's the thing. We're looking for someone who will be the takeaways crew. It could be more than one person. Folks are going to kind of be listening for the big takeaways from today. And then also a best line crew, folks looking for those quotes that are just great things we want to hang on to and maybe tweet or share later as we leave her. Anybody turn on your camera and raise your hand, or just raise your virtual hand. Let us know who will jump into those roles today. Or you could put it in the chat. So many ways to interact here.
I thought Achilles did a great job last meeting.
He did.
Thank you.
We might have to name somebody, Barb.
Oh, all right. So, well, Kristen, at my little screen I have here, I can't necessarily see everyone. So can you maybe be our selector? We're going to do voluntolding here.
All
Voluntelling?
right,
All
here I
right.
go. I've got two in mind. I've got Lisa Morales. It's going to be our takeaway,
All right, Lisa.
and best crew, or no, best line. I'm sorry, best line crew. It's Mr. Aaron, because this is his last meeting. You with us,
Wonderful. Going out strong here.
Aaron?
All right.
Strong, Aaron.
All right. And you all can always private chat with Kristen if you want to, thank her for volunteering you. Okay. All right. So let's get started into some small groups now. We're going to move on to our next slide, and we are calling this our Rose and Thorns. So we're going to get into some small groups. We've got 10 minutes discussion here just to introduce yourselves and chat a little bit about what are some things that you're grateful for. Those are our roses here. Our buds are new ideas that you are excited to explore, things that have been coming to mind for you. I'm really excited to share with you about a podcast I was listening to yesterday. And thorns are obstacles you're facing. Could be your child's facing them. You see kids or families facing them in your community, an obstacle you're facing. This is really open. So, and then we'll have a facilitator. The facilitator of your group now is a person with a November birthday or the next closest month.
Well, I hope you enjoyed your small group time and you had some chance to do introductions or catch up with people in your small group. We're going to dive right into our main topic for the morning, which is dyslexia. Hopefully, many of you were able to watch the documentary that we sent out in advance of this meeting called Our Dyslexic Children. Some of you were able to add your impressions of the documentary in our idea board, and I really thank you for sharing your thoughts and feelings and experiences. I did read them all, and from what people said, I see that we have families in the room here today who have children with dyslexia. I know that you see many strengths in your children, and you're also seeing your schools struggle to provide an appropriate public education for kids. Some of you expressed more of an immediate need for support. And so I hope that by the end of this presentation, you're going to feel that support and like you have some new ideas and connections for where to turn next. And I just want to point out that this conversation can also continue outside of the meeting today if needed. So we're going to put our presenter's bio, Brett Tingley's bio, in the chat, a link to it. And so next we are going to hear from Brett, and she is the founder and president of Parents for Reading Justice, which is an advocacy organization in Ohio. But I think her reach extends beyond just Ohio. You saw her in the documentary if you were able to watch that. And now we're really lucky to have her joining us today to tell you about her organization and the resources they provide. And then we'll have some time in small groups to talk about what we as individuals can do with this information, whether we are parents and caregivers, educators, or organization leaders or state leaders. And then after our small group, then I'm going to share more about the new laws and changes happening in Ohio and our center's new resources. And then we'll have a second breakout room time to talk about your reactions to that material and the next steps. So we'll have two presenters and two small group discussions in the next hour. It's going to be quick, but hopefully that will give everyone a chance to really dig in and engage. All right, thank you so much for being here, Brett.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this very much. I really look forward to anytime I can speak to a large group of people across a state like this. So thank you, and thank everyone for being involved in this organization and being change makers. So yeah, I don't have a lot of time, and I could talk about this for days and days. So definitely reach out offline if you've got more questions. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do. The documentary really talks about our backstory. I'm going to ask Meredith to put a link to the trailer in, and it's less than 5 minutes. If you don't have time to watch the documentary, it will give you a flavor. And we're super excited. There's a lot of momentum in the state of Ohio right now, but I want to take you back to our origin story, how we got started and what need we filled. So about 10 years ago, I realized that my daughter wasn't learning to read like other children. I immediately went to my daughter's teachers in the school district, and they really didn't have a lot of clues. They said I should have read more to my daughter. We should have fed her vegetables. Maybe we should medicate her for ADHD. And it just didn't make sense to me. So I began reaching out and doing research. And I realized there's this huge body of science about how dyslexic children learn to read. And it's actually generalizable to how all children learn to read. And I realized that there were federal laws in place that required school districts to affirmatively identify children with dyslexia as students with disabilities under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and then to provide them with a fair and appropriate public education. So I realized that there were things that we could do to teach dyslexic children how to read, and that the federal law protected our kids. So we began working individually, but then we also reached out to other parents in our district. And it's really important that once you start figuring this out, you build a parent group. We started a parent group called Upper Arlington Kids Identified with Dyslexia, or UA-KID. And what we were able to do was to approach our district very well informed about all of the science, as well as the federal law protecting our children. And over the course of a year, by banding together, we were able to bring our district to the science of reading. And we now are the district, we kind of got to build the district that we had always been hoping for. We then went on to see that this is kind of a model. If you can bring parents together in a district and bring good reading instruction, why not foster and mentor other parent groups around the state? So we were able to do that, and we formed a group called OH-KID, or Ohio Kids Identified with Dyslexia. And I think we'll get to see a slide of some of the groups that we've worked with in Ohio. We just keep seeing over and over again that this model of parents coming together has a lot of power. You can have a lot of impact. And so Parents for Reading Justice came out of this realization. We help parents in Ohio. We had the opportunity to help parents in Colorado. We have had the opportunity to help parents in Illinois and in Texas, and little parent groups all over. There are a lot of parents that are working together or working individually in little silos. But what we encourage parents to do is to come together to affect change. So with OH-KID, one of the examples that we were able to contribute to, we have over 25 parent groups in the state right now. And we've come together in this coalition called OH-KID. And we played some really key roles, testifying to the state school board, writing letters and calling the governor, bringing out voters, and helped to get the dyslexia legislation passed. I think that we also helped to get the dyslexia guidebook through the state school board. So all of that is really positive. Again, parents coming together can make a huge difference. The tool, so we built this website then, and we put all of we have lots of free tools for parents. So the documentary itself that I hope you got to watch, I have a hard time watching it because I cry every time. We tried to really highlight the children and the really the emotional trauma. They taught, a big discussion now is PTSD. They're starting to realize that children who are never taught to read and then are kind of blamed for it, there's a huge amount of PTSD that goes with that. So the documentary, which we show to anyone, anytime, it's free on YouTube and you can access it through our website. It was really made to inspire parents to come together. There's a lot of apathy in a way and saying, well, you can't really change anything. You can't really do anything. And what we wanted to show people is here is a roadmap. Here is a way that we came together and we made a difference for our kids, and not just for dyslexic kids, because once you're able to move special education to really understand, the science of reading, it turns out that the regular education teachers see what's going on, and these kids that they've had trouble teaching to read are all of a sudden learning to read. And so they say, well, what were you doing? And it's like a Trojan horse. You actually can pull good reading instruction into the tier 1, into the general ed curriculum, and it's super exciting. So the documentary was to help parents see, don't just stop after you get services for your kid. Come together and help flip that district for every kid from here on out. But also to show educators and administrators to teach them about dyslexia and some of the science. A lot of educators here in the country are not getting the science of reading in their College of Education. And so they come into teaching without really knowing any of the latest science about how to teach reading. So we wanted to teach educators about reading, dyslexia, and to help them see that these kids really can learn to read, and the emotional harm that we're doing by not being able to teach them how to read. So, and it was very important to us that we partnered with the district administration in Upper Arlington to show everybody that we flipped the district, and now we are working very closely with them to create this district that's so beneficial for all of our students. And we were just named one of the top 12 schools in the state. And I think, maybe our work had a little bit to do with that. So that's
Brett, I would love for you to talk about the master class, but first, like almost as a segue into that, I'm wondering if you can speak really directly to a parent in the room or multiple parents in the room who have kind of tried the initial avenue of maybe working with their child's teacher, and it hasn't really gone anywhere. Like there's a little bit of maybe denial about the issue or just a lack of understanding of what to do next. Who is the next, maybe like the next rung up that you would recommend that they talk to? And then how does that master class relate to sort of in teaching a parent or caregiver how to take those next steps?
Yes. Okay. So the ugly truth is that colleges of education are not teaching teachers how to teach reading. And so what happens is you go into this, first of all, you notice that your kid is not reading properly. And then you say, there's something going on. We encourage you to go talk to the teacher, see what they're seeing, figure out where the problems are, bring up, dyslexia. It may not be dyslexia, but it could be. See if they know anything about it and what the district does for kids who have dyslexia. Then if you're not satisfied, I would go up a level and ask the principal, see if they know what's going on. You can always use one of the resources that Meredith was talking about that the Family Engagement Center puts together to request an evaluation because you suspect a disability. Once you fill out that form and send it in, you always need to have your communication with the district in writing so that you have a paper trail in case you ever do have to take legal action. When you send that letter, that triggers to them that they have to evaluate your child for a learning disability. And it can get a little trickier. If your district is still not aware of the science, they might show, no, your kid doesn't have dyslexia, we're not going to provide services. That is when you can get an outside evaluation if you don't agree with the district's evaluation. And under some circumstances, you can actually have the district pay for them. But I would encourage you to talk to an advocate or an attorney who knows the legal in and outs of how to get them to pay for it. You can get services through the district, but because of the ignorance of dyslexia and the federal laws, oftentimes an advocate or an attorney are important. We actually had to hire an advocate and an attorney because we were one of the first districts in Ohio to kind of push back to try to get the science of reading. Once you get your own child services, one of the books that we recommend is Overcoming Dyslexia by Sally Shaywitz that helps you understand dyslexia. Another book called From Emotion to Advocacy by Pete Wright helps you understand your legal rights. Once you can get those services for your own child, what we encourage people to do is don't stop there. Find other parents, come together in a group, and try to shift your entire district to the science of reading so that parents who don't have the resources, the time or the money it costs to get a lot of this information and to get tutoring and to get neuropsych evaluations, so that you can help those people get services as well.
And then, so that's kind of a little bit more about the course. Can you talk a little bit about the work group or the workbook? I'm sorry.
Well, the workbook is just kind of it's the written master class. We just did it so that you can, if you want to print this out and then use it to take your notes. And I like a physical copy, but the beauty of the master class itself, it's an 8-part course that's really a roadmap of how you can make this change in your district. Is that we did almost all of it is video interviews, because a lot of parents of children with dyslexia also have dyslexia. It can be genetic and so heritable. And so we wanted people to be able to access it freely. And I don't know, I think people relate better to videos. So the master class is the workbook, but in video format so that everybody can access it.
All right, so we have about 6 minutes now. So we're going to put you back in your breakout groups, and we might be able to extend that to 7 or 8 minutes. We'll push things around, but so I'd like you to talk in your small groups about just personally, what are some next steps that you might take after watching this documentary and participating in our advocacy discussion? So Christy asked, the science of reading, is this the name of the preferred curriculum? Or are you saying that teachers need to understand the science of reading to teach decoding?
The science of reading is a huge body of knowledge by all of the experts, the researchers who are looking at how children learn to read. So it's people in education, it's people, cognitive neuroscientists, neurologists, speech and language therapists. And they have studied very carefully how children best learn to read. And so it's not a program, it's not one specific thing. It's just the idea that people in the education field stay up with the research about how children best learn to read.
Yeah, and the Ohio Department of Education, their literacy office is really trying hard to shift districts to use the science of reading, to use curricula that are rooted in the science of reading. And so I think that there is sort of this desire at the state level to make this happen. But there's a lot of historical older materials still being used. There's a lot of curriculum developers still pushing and selling things that are not aligned. So just this idea of building awareness is so important, and not just building awareness, but building in some other motivations for people to change, right?
Well, and as there's a lot of top down, so there's the legislation and the dyslexia guidebook and ODE and the state. But if parents and individuals are aware of this issue and bring it kind of from the top up, then we can have we can meet in the middle and make this change happen, because parents are the ones who are seeing how reading instruction is actually conducted in the classroom with their children, and if their children are learning to read.
All right, well, let's get into our small groups. We'll have a few minutes, and then we'll move on to talking a little bit more about what our center is doing. All right, I think everyone's rolling back in. So we have time for one or two, depending on how long the share out is, one or two people to just unmute your microphone and share very briefly sort of what the highlight of your conversation was in your small group, or maybe a next step that you plan to take individually. So who wants to go first?
Okay, Sharon will
Hi, Sharon.
jump in, because I was just making a point to the group. Another lady in there was talking about how she was that it's important that the parents, know the science of reading, and how to teach that to their children. And I'm in total agreement. The problem is that information getting to the parent. And then the second part of that I was going to add is that the parent has to be willing to access what is being offered. So therefore, their child will be successful, because the child will only be as successful as the parent is behind making sure that they are successful and having the tools to do it. The other piece was something that the facilitator mentioned, which I think was huge, that just because you come out with a degree doesn't mean you have the capitalization on everything. You have to be open to still really to learn in that, and to add to what you already know. So that science of reading piece, which I've never heard about the science of reading. However, I've been doing my own thing and we making games, but I think that we're going to have greater games just because of the information that is being disseminated through this every 3 months, facilitation that we do to find out more how to help our children. And by helping our children, we're helping our district. And by helping our district, we're going to affect state level.
Thank you, Sharon. Faye, do you want to share quickly, and then we will move on to my presentation?
One of the things that we discussed is how we were going to share that information, not only at a district level, like Sharon just echoing what she just said, but we also asked the letter how it was going to be sent out. So it was nice that another member mentioned that they will have it at, well, family can use it and also school can use it. So that's very helpful. I work at Columbus City School, so I'm looking forward for that information to share it, not for just the dyslexia, other kids can actually benefit from it as well.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I hope to hear more about your conversations later on. But I do want to make sure that we do have time to talk about the resources our center is developing, because we've gotten some great feedback on them. And so at this point, we really feel like we need you all as ambassadors to take them out into the world and share them more broadly. So really the impetus for us talking about dyslexia today is because there's some really big changes happening in Ohio's education system. And Ohio is not alone in adopting new laws and supports related to dyslexia. Just this morning, Barbara was telling me that Alaska has some new laws that they're putting into place that are similar to ours. And so this past spring, we began working with the Ohio Department of Education, and my colleague at ODE, Shireen Tambaraja, is in the room today, and she co-presented with me at our summit about the work that we're doing together. And really, we're partnering to develop new communication tools for schools and for families. And we're doing this because we know that it's very important with any new initiative, whether it be in education or public health or otherwise, to have really like clear information out there for people who are responsible for following that policy or law. And so, I mean, when I started looking into it, I was like, there's over 600 school districts in Ohio and 4 million households. So I see our center as positioning ourselves so that no one feels that they're really starting from zero when it comes to developing a letter or some talking points to share, whether it's a family or a school, because that's a back and forth relationship, right? So right now, we're so lucky in Ohio to have this federal funding for a statewide family engagement center, and that we're working so closely with our state Department of Education. And so you guys know that our mission is to equip and empower schools and families to meaningfully partner. So we've got this beautiful opportunity, right, to come alongside families and districts and schools and teachers, listen to the questions that they have about the new laws, listen to their struggles with the education system, and develop some templates and see where we go next. Just to have sort of a common definition, Ohio's dyslexia laws define dyslexia as a specific learning disorder that's neurological in origin, and that's characterized by unexpected difficulties with accurate or fluent word recognition, and by poor spelling and decoding abilities. Decoding is kind of like figuring out all the different sounds in a word and how you blend them together to say the whole word. And it's not consistent with the person's intelligence, motivation, and sensory capabilities, which difficulties typically result from a deficit in the phonological component of language. That's a very technical definition. It's hard for me to even say. So we tried to come up with like, what's the gist of what people really need to know about this? So we have a slightly less technical definition. Dyslexia is one of the most common learning disabilities. People with dyslexia have many strengths, but have unexpected trouble learning to read. And I think there's some myths out there, like it's something to do with like flipping letters, or it's it's something with your visual system, but it's really that neurological piece. These difficulties are not related to a person's intelligence or motivation. It affects each person in a different way. But children with dyslexia can learn to read. And I love how in the masterclass from Parents for Reading Justice, they really hit that home that almost all kids have the capacity to learn to read if we teach them well. I just love that. So, but obviously the earlier we kind of catch if someone has dyslexic signs, then the easier it is for us to teach them. So the percentage of students who experience characteristics of dyslexia is as high as 15 to 20%. And so we, as a center, say up to 1 in 5 kids. So if you think about a classroom, that could be several kids within any single classroom that have dyslexia, which makes it all the more crazy if we don't have good, instructional practices to teach kids with dyslexia. So why is this range so large? I didn't know this when I first started getting into this work, that there really is a spectrum, just with lots of things in life. There's a spectrum. You can have mild characteristics or signs of dyslexia. You can have much more moderate or even profound dyslexia. All right, so Kristen's going to start putting a lot of links in the chat, and we can also think of a way to kind of, we'll have these slides and links in the council webpage so that you can always go back to them. But basically, there are about 5 or more ways to know about the new dyslexia laws. So you can always read Ohio Revised Codes. It's a little technical. That's really the legal language that's the basis for some of these other things I'm going to talk about. You can, especially if you are sort of a teacher or a superintendent or district leader, you can read Ohio's Dyslexia Guidebook and the webpage from the Ohio Department of Education. That's really geared towards schools, but there's also good information in there for other stakeholders like families and community partners. And that really spells out a lot of, takes that legal language and really attempts to put it in a format for people to understand it better. Shireen here today shared at our summit that the email address, she's Ohio's dyslexia administrator at the state level. And so she shared her email address. So her or someone else on her team responds to the emails, people's questions about the dyslexia laws, how to apply it within their school district. So dyslexia@education.ohio.gov. There's what we developed with the Ohio Department of Education is called the Dyslexia Resource Guide for Ohio Families. So we sat down together. We looked at what other states had in terms of dyslexia resource guides for families. We sat down with families of students with dyslexia and with literacy specialists around the state. And we came up with I think it's a 3-page guide that really spells out not just what dyslexia is, but what it looks like to partner with your school, what the school does related to dyslexia. And then, as you heard about today, there are also family advocacy groups out there that can support an understanding of the laws, both special education law and what dyslexia is, and how you can work with your school. So Parents for Reading Justice is one of those parent advocacy groups. And then I think that this is where we eventually will get, where people feel comfortable having informal conversations with colleagues and friends about how these laws relate to them, how they can kind of stand on these laws to get their kids' needs met in the classroom. So what are the big pieces of the laws? This is at a very high level. There's some teacher professional development, and we have a link to the course for teachers that was just developed, and I'm sure Shireen could do a whole session on what that course is and what it covers, but it does cover all about dyslexia and the science of reading. So there is teacher professional development that is mandated within the law. And you'll start seeing teachers getting certified and taking new courses related to this as soon as, for this coming school year. And then it kind of phases in for other grades teachers. So first it starts with the kindergarten level, and then you'll see older grade level teachers being required to take the course. There's screening for kindergartners and older grade level options. So this means there will be a universal screening for kindergarten students for dyslexia, just like a really brief screener in the classroom. It's not diagnostic, so you won't, hear as a parent after that, like, your kid has dyslexia, but you may hear in a letter that they are showing signs of dyslexia or characteristics of dyslexia. So this is such a huge step in understanding the prevalence in our Ohio schools and then taking action based on that. So what is that action that will happen? There will be instructional support and resources, and this big piece, right? Communication between schools and families is in the law. So we tried to get out ahead of this, and we did a summit presentation on what are some general things that are important to think about when you're developing communications related to dyslexia. We talked to people about the tone being collaborative, the focus being oriented to academics, as opposed to maybe compliance, like we have to send you this letter because the law told us to. We talk about the communication valuing the expertise of families and being proactive and solutions focused. All right, so, but at the end of the day, was the communication heard? Did people get the information that they needed from a letter or a phone call about their kids' results? So I realized that we're gonna feel like we're flying through this. So what I'm going to do is pull up our website and show you the resources that we developed. So give me a high sign, whoever. Kristen, can you let me know if you can see this website?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so we partnered with ODE and Ohio Families and Educators, and so we came up with a flow chart based on the law of when schools have to communicate with families about the dyslexia screenings. So you can download that directly from our website and take a look at it. Eventually, all of the places where you see notify family will be hyperlinked to a sample letter or two. We have one of them in there now, and we're working on a second one right now. Next week, we have a work group. So we wanted to really clearly just make it very straightforward for people to know when they're supposed to notify families at a minimum, and then what that might sound like to notify a family in sort of a human way, not just like a legalistic, like we have to do this kind of way. All right, we've got a sample school year timeline for when these screenings and diagnostics happen. We've got this dyslexia resource guide for families, and it is translated into multiple languages. And I just heard yesterday that the Ohio Department of Education hired a contractor to put it into an audio version for each of these languages. So pretty soon we'll have sort of a spoken version of all these, so that if someone is not able to read this content in this format, they will be able to sort of watch a YouTube video about it. So we've got the Dyslexia Resource Guide, which we hope will be shared out in lots of different ways. There's also a web version of it. So you could kind of, just go to the section you want. So how are children screened? How do I help my kid at home? What should I tell my child? We kind of worked on, what are some quotes that you could take away and use at home that are really not sort of deficit focused, but really supportive of what a kid might be feeling. And what people really seem to be liking as well is this sample dyslexia screening request letter. So it's just a Word document. So anyone hopefully should be able to open it and copy it for their own uses, adapt it for, writing about their child. Oops. Okay, so dear teacher, I've noticed my child, put your child's name in there, is having trouble in school with learning. I've noticed the following signs. Given these warning signs, I'd like for my child to be screened for dyslexia as soon as possible. Please give me a call. So important to have a date on there. Oops. Okay. And then, because we're trying to increase the dual capacity of both families and schools, we also have this sample letter that the schools can send to families and really adapt for their local purposes after a screening. So this kind of walks through generally what the letter should provide families with, and then it goes really into what the letter might sound like. And so we hope that people really don't feel like they're starting from zero. We can put together some state level templates that can help people do a much better job of really simply laying out for families what the screening is and what the results were and what it means for their kid in the classroom. All right, I'm going to go back to my slides, and we'll put these up on the council webpage or send them out in a follow-up email. But I really want to give you guys a little bit of time just to really talk in your small groups about, now that you've seen some of the things that our center is pulling together, how does this additional information sort of apply to you personally, and or what can you do next? So we do have a brief poll before we go into the breakout groups. Kristen, I think, is going to pull that up in a second here. There's some different ways you could share about these resources or use them. So you can click multiple of them. We'll give you a minute to respond.
Does everybody see the poll pop up?
See some people starting to
Yep.
plug in responses. That's a good sign.
Sounds good.
Yep, I think that's good. So the majority of you said that you would be sharing with colleagues or friends. About a third of you said you would immediately download and use the templates, which is amazing. 2 of you said that you're going to create your own staff or family presentation on this topic. So if you need any support with that, please do let me know. And then over a third of you said you're going to think about what your role is in promoting trust through communications. So that mulling time is sometimes important. I'm going to mull on what this really means for me and continue digging into these resources. And then one person said it doesn't seem to apply them at that time, and that's fine. We all have these different priorities in our lives. All right, so we're going to stop sharing that. And I'm going to skip through this. This is kind of just a reminder that, we're very motivated to do this work because we know that it's important that all kids have opportunities in our education system and in life. All right, 10 minutes. We're going to talk about what you can personally do to increase awareness about this topic and what our center should do next. And this, there will be a work group later on in this meeting where we'll have about a half hour to, if anyone wants to talk more about the dyslexia resources. But right now, 10 minutes, small groups. to talk about these two questions.
Thanks, Kristen, and I'm really was so thrilled to have that presentation. Just thank you so much to Meredith and Brett both for bringing that to us. It's exciting to hear. It's exciting to learn about and discover sort of the history and how we can move forward on this and really change the lives of so many of our kids and their families and their trajectory for their learning and their future. So thank you for. And we can just go to the next slide. So I'm here to give an update to you all, and we have mounds of data. We have data coming out of our ears. Meredith tries to manage all that for us, and she very graciously sort of pulled out some points that I could share with you all of today, because we do feel accountable to you. You're our partners, and we want to share sort of updates of what's going on. So here's a bit of data that we'd like to share with you, and this is important. So on every federal grant, there are some measures they call the GEPRA measures, and these are the measures that get reported back to Congress about a particular grant. So they roll up every state that has the same federal statewide family engagement center grant as us. We all have to report on these 4 things, and when we wrote the grant years ago, we had to sort of project out what we thought our achievements would be, what our goals were. And so I want to share with you about that. So number one of the things is they want to know how many families have been served. And it's hard to measure, because I feel like you all help us to serve families. And then if you take these materials and you share them with people and you're putting them on social media and families are picking those up and using them, sometimes it's really hard to capture that ripple effect. So we sort of have a few measures of like very direct ways we can verify, yes, we were meeting a family's need there, or we directly worked with this school and they worked with this many families. So in that sense, our goal was 6,916, and we reached 90% on that. We exceeded that in the first 2 years. I think there are COVID impacts. I think there are lots of reasons about sort of how we measure it and how we count it, but still, given the state of sort of recovering from the pandemic and getting out and being able to work with families, we were able to reach 6,224 and really account for those in a robust way. The second is the number of high impact statewide infrastructure activities. So these are big things that are available statewide that are supporting family and community engagement in education at a statewide level. We said that we would have 6 of these in place in our actual, as of year 4, and I'm sharing with you of year 4, so that would have ended last September. We had 11 of those. The third being the number of high impact activities to ensure families are equipped and can engage. So these are high impact activities, and we work with over 100 schools throughout Ohio, and they are all submitting plans to us about the activities they are doing with families and in their schools. We really think that is how we really want to see family engagement blossoming and growing and becoming more robust, is right at the school level in local communities. But we also do offer and work with families directly as a center. So our goal was 128 of those activities, and through our own work and through those schools that we're closely partnering with, we were able to verify 491 high impact activities. So each of those 491 activities are activities that in many ways reached many families. So, and then number 4 is the percent of families reporting enhanced capacity to work with schools and service providers. So at any opportunity we have to have a family member's attention as we are working with them, or they're reporting out through their schools on a survey, them reporting to us that my knowledge about this has increased. I'm going to be able to better advocate for my child, or understand or work with their teacher better, support their learning at home, access community resources. Those are, that's the percentage. So we were hoping that at least 40% of the families that we were working with would say, yes, you were helpful to me. And we had instead 80%. So we are feeling pretty good about this. And you are really key to this, the information and feedback that you give to us helps us to do a better job of the things that we create for families and the things that, you know, the topics that we're trying to address and the ways that we're doing it. So you are really key to this. And as Meredith has added in the chat, this includes you as family representatives on our State Advisory Council. We ask you a question like this on our surveys and you have responded. So your responses are also rolled up into that, that number. So those are the big things, like what Congress will hear in the little bit that of Ohio that sort of gets rolled up in there's lots of reports going, but that's a big number. So we also want to share back with you some results from your annual council survey from last year. And these are things that we were excited to see. So one, you reported on this item that says, I discuss council news and resources with others who are not council members. What we see is that year to year, that is increasing. And that's exciting to us that you are saying, yes, I'm doing that. You're reporting that on a scale of things, you're reporting like on the really good, the really high side of that scale. Boy, that was very technical. This is why Meredith is in charge of these things. All right, and I work, so you also reported, I work or consult with council members outside of scheduled meetings. So you're meeting with other council members, you're making connections through our council to other people who are resources to you, and that is also something, a trajectory we see increasing from your responses year to year. That's exciting to us because like we don't want to be a wheel and we're the center and you're just all relating to us like we're the center of all your interactions. We want it more like this web of connections. And so we're really glad to see that that's happening. You also, in the response to, I can apply things I'm learning in meetings in my home or organization, that has been something that has been increasing over the years that we all have been working together. And that's exciting to us that this is both personally and professionally, and in many ways, useful information to you. That is important to us. And so we're glad to see that trajectory going up. Well, another item we want to share with you though and put out there is if I miss a meeting, I keep up by reviewing the meeting recording and the records. And that is not a trajectory that has been increasing. That's something that is has sort of a different trend line there. That's not sort of going up, but I think it's maybe plateauing a little bit. Or, and so we want to be helpful for that. So if you do miss a meeting, and we know that life happens, work happens, things happen, we do record every session. We do have things available to you, and we're always happy to meet with you too in between meetings. So we hope that we can make this easier for you to do. So if in some way we can be more helpful to, you know, make that more accessible to you, get the recording to you in a different way, get meeting notes out to you in a different way for you to be able to kind of stay in pace with us as we're moving along and stay informed and also keep us informed of what you're doing and what you're thinking, please let us know. This is an area that we see we should improve in order to help you be able to stay in touch and keep up to date in reviewing meeting records and that sort of thing. All right, so I'm going to leave that there, but that's an action step for us. So you could use the chat, or you can always reach out if you're thinking about this later, and you can tell us about maybe your ideas for how we could be more helpful in that way. All right, so why is there knitting here? Because I'm a knitter. I learned in an after-school program when I was in second grade in the basement of a church in West Orange, New Jersey. I love to tell that story because I still knit today. If I could reach it, I've got a little sweater that I'm knitting right now for my granddaughter because I learned in second grade in an after-school program. But I see our center as being a center that is funded by lots of funding streams. We do lots of different work, always supporting family and schools working together to support our kiddos, their learning, their well-being. That is our focus. All of our work is there, but we do it in many different topics in different ways with different partners for different ends. It might be research, it might be creating resources, it might be state infrastructure, it might be answering a phone call of a grandparent who calls us and leaves a voicemail and says, will you please call me back? I have questions. We do all of that whole range of helping with state policy, helping presenting at the national level to responding to phone calls that we get from families. So I want to share with you some of our current funded projects. So and let's, if you just want to bring those up on the screen. So I see this as us braiding together different funding. So one is we have a special education funded, an IDEA funded project called the Family and Community Engagement Network project that enables us to work with all 16 regional state support teams in Ohio to support them and the districts they work with around family engagement. And we've actually had that project now going on 10 years. We have another project that we were working on right now called Advancing Ohio's English Learner Supports. And it's a family engagement roadmap. Yesenia Alvarez Padilla on our team, as well as Juma Akira on our team, but also who has been a council member for a long time and a representative from the CHRIS organization, are really focused on that project as well. But we are creating a multimedia interactive roadmap that people who work with families of students who are considered English learners or for families directly to be able to use that to understand, how do I enroll my child? What is this school system like? What are my rights? What is the assessment like for English learners? And what is the instruction like? And how does my child enter into that? And how do they then exit out of that program? What is graduation like? And how are things graded? All of those questions that any family, any parent has, I certainly had them, making that information accessible, friendly, and welcoming for families of students who are considered English learners. We also have a project led by Hadley Bachman on 21st Century Community Learning Centers, providing professional learning for folks who work in after-school programs in Ohio on how they can effectively partner with the families of their students. Also, we have a Meredith is leading a project of family engagement for Ohio's model literacy sites, which is a wonderful program that's reaching more and more schools and families to support literacy. And then we also have our federal statewide family engagement center grant. And we want you to know that there was a new application for that program, and we were not funded in the last round. We were shocked. But we're over it, kind of. And we are doing a couple of things. One is looking to see, because we believe there'll be another round of funding. And so we don't know if they will select applicants from our last application, or if we'll apply again, or if there will be an option to apply again. That federal grant kicked off this council, and it really helped us to leverage and become sort of our position and to sort of grow. We want you to know that that grant, we are not sort of dependent on that grant to be Ohio's statewide family engagement center. That is something we are, that is something we will continue to be, but we wanted to be transparent, let you know we didn't get that federal grant this time around. We also know that in looking at it, it's a 5-year grant, but we know that we will be able to extend our funding into a 6th year. So we're entering into our 5th year now. We know that we'll have a 6th year. But I wanted to share that with you, that was a substantial level of funding for us. All right, so let's go into the next thing. And when I, next slide, please. When I go into a yarn store, I just see possibilities. And that's what I see in this little pile of yarn here. And so if you think about this blending and braiding of funding streams, if you can think about these balls of yarn as being potential funding streams for us to braid into. So one of them is that new statewide family engagement center grant, that federal grant. We're monitoring that to see, could we may potentially still receive funding. We may not, we may apply again. We're waiting to see what that looks like. Another is that we are currently writing for a Spencer Foundation, that's a family foundation, a research practice partnerships grant. We're excited about this. Hadley Bachman is leading this effort, but I don't think there's anyone on our team who isn't like up to their elbows in writing and supporting this grant application. And we're excited because we are going to work, our partner in this is Trotwood Madison City School District out near Dayton. They're a wonderful school district that we've gotten to know through our work in the National Network of Partnership Schools. And we are looking forward to applying for this with them to work with their teams of parents and teachers in their schools to look at chronic absenteeism and how they can engage with families in their community to find solutions and to address chronic absenteeism of their students. We're really excited about this application and doing a lot of work to make it our best effort. Another is we are looking at options for charging for our services, to have some of the things that we do, we put no price tag on anything we do. Our summit is free, our training is free, our technical assistance is free. And we're realizing more and more that we're under we're under high demand for the services that we provide. So we're looking at where can we strategically say, these services would be something that you could fund our team to do. And so we're looking at different opportunities that we might be able to sort of create those sort of fee for services. There are also other opportunities in Ohio and nationally that I think not a week goes by where we don't have another thought say, here's something we need to act on, apply for, or to stand up and say, hey, we would be really the folks that would be able to do this work well. So I share those things with you, but we also want to hear from you and to know more about you. And so I'm going to be leading one of our breakout groups. And so if this is something that has piqued your interest, you want to know more about anything that I just said, I would love to talk with you more about that. So, all right, and our next slide then takes us to, this. I'm going to stop talking and let Hadley share about this. Hadley, I know that like I said I would do it, but I'd like for you to be able to share about this new resource that we have.
Great. Wonderful. Well, I just really want to thank my work group. We've had a work group where we looked at the middle school family engagement learning pack that we were developing for middle schools to be able to lead learning sessions with families about how to support children at the middle school transition. And I got a lot of great feedback from my working group, and we worked on creating a final product for schools to be able to use, and it is ready to go. So it includes a fully prepared workshop plan, all the things you can see there, PowerPoint slides, handout materials, a lot of choices about length and what you could include, and a number of other things. So you can access it at the link. You could scan the QR code, but I don't know that you'd want to download it on your phone. It's a zip file, so it's a lot of content there, and it should be ready to go. It has a script in the PowerPoint for school counselors or anybody who might be leading a session like this. So one thing is at the very end, there is a survey for families to take if you've led it. We really ask that if schools use it, that we be able to kind of track that they're using it so we can gather some feedback and keep making it better. So please let your schools know that this is a resource that is out there, and share the word. In community organizations, I think it would also be helpful for community organizations to use. After school programs, I think it would be a really helpful resource for them as well. So anyway, I want a big shout out to my work group and thank you for your input. And you'll see all of your suggestions all over it. So thanks a lot.
So it seems like there's some technical issues. Kristen, are you having technical issues or just responding to what Sharon said?
I'll just respond to Sharon. Is anybody
Okay.
else having any
It
issues?
might just be her computer is.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Maybe,
Kayleen.
and just as we segue here, maybe Greg, if you could jump in and see if you can help Sharon out, that would be great.
Yes, great idea.
Okay.
All right. So we are just a little bit ahead of time. Way to go, Barb. It is time for our work groups. Here are new work groups for today. We're going to do the usual where you can pick one of these or two of these if you want to split your time. We're going to have 30 minutes. Number one is Tough Conversations with Tom and Hadley. Number two is Dyslexia Continued Conversations. Number three, English Learners with Yesenia. Uh-oh. How do we switch off our PowerPoint? There we go. Number four, Mental Health, if you want to join Patrick again. And number five, like Barb said, she is happy to continue conversations about future center projects. So I already have the rooms created. And I will go ahead and open these up. And you should be able to choose them. And if you have any problems, just let me know where you'd like to go and I'll assign you. Well, I heard there were some good conversations being had. I'm sorry that I don't get to participate in them, but that's okay. Meredith, if you want to put the slides back up, there we go. Next slide. All right, so I think what we're going to do here is we're just going to take a shorter break here since we're at towards the end of our meeting. But while you're at break, I want you to think about this question. How can we help families understand, monitor, and buffer the negative impacts of social media? After break, we are going to do a similar thing we did last meeting if you were here, where we kind of had an all-play group discussion where we came up with a problem and brainstormed some solutions and ideas to that problem. And we will go ahead and do that after break, and this will be what we will talk about. So I will see you all back here about 11:20:21, okay?
So we are going to have a group discussion. So you'll need something to write on nearby, and you will also, we're going to have, have you close to the chat or the ability to unmic in a little bit. So just the general thing that we're going to do is first we're going to take a couple minutes and think about a problem and write down our ideas and solutions to it. Then we'll have a little chance to share out our initial ideas and ask questions if necessary. Then we'll be brainstorming next steps for families and schools. And you may remember we did this same kind of discussion protocol last time in our group. So next slide, please. So the problem that we wanted to talk about today is how can we help families understand, monitor, so kind of keep an eye on, and buffer. So if you're unfamiliar with that word, I don't use that word a whole lot in my everyday speech. Maybe like shielding is another way of thinking about it, or kind of, keeping an eye on and sort of protect your kids from the negative impacts of social media. So this is a problem that's near and dear to my heart as a parent of an 8th grader, and I've been maybe thinking about and worrying about it ever since my daughter was in elementary school. And I'm sure parents here of older kids are still thinking about this. And I've seen troubling news stories around this pretty regularly in local and national news. So it's definitely a regular problem. So let's just take about 2 minutes on your own. If you've got a piece of paper nearby, it can even just be the back of any scrap piece of paper you have. Just maybe jot down what point of view are you bringing to this, or you have a parent hat on right now, or are you thinking about this from a school district point of view or an organization? And then just think about your initial ideas about this. What do you think how we can help families understand, monitor, and buffer or shield or protect their kids from the negative impacts of social media? And we'll take 2 minutes. Okay, so would anybody like to share an idea they might have about this? You can either raise your hand, and maybe if Kristen, you can help keep an eye on calling on people, or you can post your idea in the chat if that's your preferred method. I believe Meredith is going to switch to screen sharing a spot where I'm going to be recording your ideas that you share. What ideas do you have about how we can help families understand, monitor, and protect their children from the negative impacts of social media? Who wants to kick us off? Sharon?
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Again, this is a real live moment. I just took my son's phone, computer at a certain time at night so he can go to sleep, because it's something about this internet thing that is so fascinating that it leaves you sleepless. So the first thing is that you have to monitor how it's happening at home. Then to explain that this is more than just I do with my son. This is more than just what you see on your screen. This is people around the world that you can't see that are seeing you, but you can't see them. So what you put out there is what only people are going to see about you. So be careful about what you put out there about yourself. And then ironically, I do have some things support in place that even if I don't see it, his friends are my friends, young and adult, they let me know. So, you know, like, hey, I seen Adolphus doing XYZ, or in a good way and then concerning way. So it helps to have a village, I think, along with what you do in your house. You have to monitor what's happening, you know, within your house with the internet, you know, and everything. That's just my story. And I don't have eyes in the back of my head, but I sure make him believe that I got eyes in the back of my head and that there's somebody always watching what you're doing, even to the point that now that they get computers from school. I said, they're watching you too. They're watching everything that you do. That's why they have certain filters and blocks and all of that. And no matter how much you try to hack it and get through it, you might be successful, but they're going to find out, you know. So it's communication. I'm just, that's what I'm going to leave it with. It is communication with your kids. I'm glad that I have communication with my son, you know, whether if it's good or bad, but we are talking, you know, and the community of people that also that are on the internet that are friends, no matter if you even change your name and set up a new account and all of that, because you can do it in such a quick manner. But at the end of the day, it's about your life, and people who are seeing you, you don't see them in this internet world. So
Thank you.
be careful.
So
Just
I've
to
got,
pick-
sorry, go
Sorry,
ahead.
I just want to piggyback a little off what Sharon said. So becoming friends with their friends and their friends' families, their parents or caregivers, guardians. And when you see something as a parent, say something. Like, you know, if I'm communicating with my daughter and she says, hey, Lily said that she feels really bad and she's crying in the bathroom and she doesn't want to live. I know I can text Lily's mom and say, hey, it seems like Lily's having a really hard time right now. So, you know, open communication with everybody in our community about what we're seeing out there is really important.
I think transparency around just like what your expectations are. My kids are not old enough for social media yet, but I know just having conversations of, you have a phone, here are the things that you are allowed to do, here are the things that are permissible, but also transparency around the fact that me as your parent, I'm going to review those things. So there is going to be a point in time where I will be looking through your phone or looking through these things, because that's part of how I monitor. I think is important, because I think when kids, it can feel like a breach in trust if they feel like their parents are doing it behind their back. So being upfront about that is important. And I also think families kind of adopting, you know, we're in the place where we want our kids to have less screen time, but the reality is there are a lot of adults that have a lot of screen time. And so, you know, maybe even adopting a policy in which we're doing that as a family, right? So if I'm telling my kids it's time for you to put your phone down, it's also time for me to put my phone down. You only have 30 minutes on, you know, TikTok, or 15 minutes on TikTok. It means I only have 15 minutes on TikTok too. So really creating that balance across the household.
I'm combining that suggestion with one that I saw in the chat about spending more time with families and friends outdoors. So I put doing outdoor activities and playing games together. And I really love your comment about being a good role model. Sometimes I know for myself, it's hard to hold myself to the same expectation that I'm expecting my daughter to do. So I put time limits on my phone if I have time limits on my daughter's phone. So that resonates with me as well. I'm looking back through the comments to see if I've missed any. I think I might have caught up. I love Barbara's suggestion to also teach them how to use social media for good. So if they're on social media, like building up your friends and, you know, using it to be a force for kindness out there. Were there other ideas that I maybe have missed?
I think being the positive, maybe, I know it ties up with Dr. Bone's comments there, but giving them the positive aspects of social media. Social media not necessarily means a negative thing, but it's also positive in how that positivity can be created. So raising that expectations, raising that awareness on them will help saying that this is not necessarily going to be negative, but it will also has positive aspect of it, because I think it has so much a positive aspect that we see and through both the lens.
One of the things that I see family and friends doing regularly at the adult level is auditing how they feel after being on social media, and then using that as a way to understand where they need to step back, where they need to be a little more choosy about how they spend their time on social media, so that you're really feeling like it's a support and not something that's dragging you down or making you stay up too late, or really maybe dragging you into rabbit holes is the best way of thinking about it, that
Mhm.
are not productive necessarily. So I think then modeling for kids that behavior of, how are you feeling after you spend 10 minutes on Facebook or Twitter, and why do you think that is? So kind of connecting it to how you're feeling, and then using that as kind of data almost, in a sense, to decide, okay, is this the way I should be spending my time? Is it helping me reach my goals for the moment, or is it something that's really holding me back?
I seen something recently that said to connect with your kids, talk to them about the positives. And then if you start the conversation with positives, then they will open up more about the negatives. But it's up to you to start the conversation in the beginning, because sometimes if you start it with, asking them exactly what's bad, they're like, they shut down. But starting it with positive sometimes opens the door to more conversations.
I just want to echo what Elizabeth just said, because I have a 14-year-old who also is on social media. And a lot of times she won't come at me if I'm said, what's wrong with this, what's going on and all that. But if I say, oh, are you doing any research, or is it your group? What are you guys discussing about school? What's going on? I mean, and then she was more open, because I start with a positive. Oh, I'm glad you're actually using it. I mean, are you doing a research? I try to, basically, I'm being nosy as a parent. I want to know, but I don't want to feel like I'm invading her space. So I'll start by saying, I mean, is it your student, your classmates? Just finding a way to make them feel like they are still in charge and you're not invading their privacy, but at the same time, you're making them being open to that conversation. Because kids are not gonna open to you if you start by saying, you want this because this and this and that. Educating the parents is another piece for us foreigners. And the reason I said that, if I wasn't working at a school and I was not educated in what it can be done and what cannot be done, I would be that same parent who's saying, this is bad, you cannot use it, this, and this, and that. And, oh, you're not allowed to use your phone, and that's it. But you need that phone for a necessity, because when you're at school, if you don't understand, you can use it for Google Translate. You can there are other things other than social media that the phone is used, the computer is used. But those parents who are not educated in technology, they just think negatively of everything. You said social media, it's related to phone, computer, laptops, whatsoever. How do we make sure that? By talking, not only educating the kid, but the parent.
So our next step is actually to think about this. So we're going to take a pause on our discussion, and we're going to think about what are some concrete next steps for this problem that we would recommend. And if you are a family representative, I want you to think about maybe 1 or 2 concrete next steps that you would recommend for a family to implement right now. Based on so we have a whole long list, and maybe Meredith can slowly scroll through the long list we have. We kind of captured a whole long list of ideas. So now thinking about, as our conversation went, if you were to select 1 or 2 of those as like, those should definitely be our next steps. So you're going to think about that for about 2 minutes. And then also, if you are a school or organization representative, what are 1 or 2 really important next steps that schools can do to help support families in this? So let's take 2 minutes just to think, and then we are going to write some of those down. If you want to view the file yourself, I put the link in the chat if you'd like to view it. Okay, so I am now taking next steps, and if you put it in chat or unmute, either one, be clear for me if you're giving me a next step for a family or a next step for a school, so I know where to record it. Okay, so Faye, which is that a next step for?
I'll say for school because
Mm-hmm.
this is where I'm at. Because I don't think we have tell those parents about the use of it. So the perception that is out there, not for every family, but it's not in a positive way, specifying what we are talking about when we say social media.
Do you think that this is something that only parents of English learners need, or do you think all families need this?
The reason I'm talking specifically, I'm not sure here in this country because everyone is pretty much exposed to technology. But I know in other countries, we're not all exposed to technology. It's not something that is embraced very well. So I can only speak for families that are non-native.
Okay, thank you. I agree with Kristen. I second that. It would be very helpful for a school to help us be aware of common apps that are being used by students. There's quite a few organizations out there that create tip sheets about those, and so that's something that would be easy for a school to send. I agree, Erin. When I worked in schools, though, I was familiar with the apps that kids were using. They were talking about them in schools. That's something schools often do know about that. That's very true. Kim, is that a suggestion for families or for schools?
I would say families. I talk to my kiddos. I have millennials, I have Gen Zs, and I talk to them about social media and what it is that they do. We can't control what's out there. We never will be able to control what our kids are receiving, but we can, as parents, help them build their confidence so that when that negativity is being received by them, that their response is a little different. I just asked my 27-year-old who's about to leave for work how she felt about this question. And she said, that's exactly what I do. She said, we get things in our feeds and you have to know what to ignore, what to respond to, but also when you have a strong sense of who you are and confidence, you're not as affected.
Thank you very much. I really like Barbara's suggestion about talking together with your kids to create limits, kind of building those collaboratively. That's really supportive of kids as they get older. They're much more likely to buy in if they get a little bit of a say in it. And I like this, like your family's way, like knowing that it could be different than other families' ways, because each family does things a little differently. So we've had a few suggestions repeated around being aware of kind of like the time or the space in which your children are on or using their devices. And this kind of connects back to something Sharon said way back at the beginning about, especially late at night, sort of knowing when and where and what your kids are doing on phones. So I'm going to include that as a family suggestion because I think that that's at least something to talk about, consider as a family.
I think, Hadley, it's good to be aware too that we all have children of different age levels, and so having these conversation in an age appropriate level, like, you know, you might be having these continued conversations, and depending on what age they are, the conversation might look different in a couple years down the road. So kind of keeping that in mind, like, you know, obviously those of us that have older children, they're aware and understand more than the elementary. And so our conversations might look different. So just kind of keeping that in mind as well as you're talking to your kids.
I really like that, Kristen. I also wanted to mention that we have to be careful when we say family, because families look different. I think it is sort of counterproductive if you have mom saying one thing and then dad saying something else, especially if they're not in the same household. Or, you know, I'm a grandma, my grandson is 14. If his mom is saying one thing and he comes and stays with me, but I'm allowing him to do something different. So I think it's very important for families to be on the same page, that they come to a decision that they're all going to kind of stand in this space when it comes to their kiddos using social media.
I think that's a great point, and I'm working on expressing that as well as I can. I'm correcting my own sentence.
Thanks, Hadley.
Any other steps for schools that I've missed? Are there any other responsibilities for a school that we should capture? So far, we have creating information sessions for families about the use of technology with a particular nod to multilingual families, and then sending home information about common apps and gaming platforms that are being used by students and how to find out more information. Is there anything else that we should add there? Krista?
Yep. One other thing, one of the things we've done in our county is we have someone who is part of the, I don't know if he's still at the prosecutor's office, but he's within family court at one point, and they can come out and do presentations to families about just the things to watch out for by way of social media and what that means. And so I think sometimes hearing from some of our officials who are in the courts may also help, but that's something that has happened in our county. And a couple of years ago, several years ago, I should say, they came and they did a presentation with respect to that for parents, so that they had a different understanding and they knew from a legality standpoint what some of those, what it meant, some of the things they should keep in mind, as well as when students say that they've erased things. I think this was when Snapchat was out and they said it was erased, that sometimes when we say it's erased, it's never gone. So I think just giving parents that other insight from a legal standpoint could also be helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you so much. I want to just thank everybody for participating in that today. We really appreciate these times to be able to talk about things from different lenses. So I want to pass things back to Kristen now. Thank you.
All right. We are right on time. So if we can go to the next slide. Yes, we're there. Okay. So this is a time that I want to thank those individuals that have served on our council, and that either they have maxed out their term or they've chosen not to return for next year. So I want to take a moment to acknowledge them at this time and give them a chance to quickly mention anything about their time that they've served here on the council. So the first one's Autumn Brown. She has been with us for a year. And Autumn, are you here? You want to unmic? No. All right, next is Brittany Debro. She has served us for 3 years and has been wonderful on our council. Brittany, are you here? Oh, they all said they would show today. That's all right. Tracy Hill, I know is was going to try to make it on. I don't know if she is. I'm looking
Yes,
through
Chris,
this.
I'm here.
Oh, yay, Tracy made it.
Yeah, I'm actually at an out of school time symposium here in Cleveland that was organized by our district and Starting Point, MyCom, the Cleveland Foundation. And we're actually looking at how to better serve students in the out of school time arena. And provide better services to meet their needs. But I just want to say thank you to the council and the Ohio Family State Center for the work that you've been doing and have continued to do in terms of building supports for our practitioners of family engagement, but also elevating the parent voice to be at the table so that they could help guide in the development of the resources that are utilized or that have been done on the website, the different webinars, the focus groups, video vignettes, and all of that. So thank you. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be a part of this important work.
Well, it's been an honor having you, Tracy. We will miss seeing your face in these meetings, but we know that our connection is not going to end here. Thank you for joining us today, and good luck in all that you do. Next is Cecilia Loibel. She is one of our Ohio State professor representatives. She helped with the Money Talks project. I know she couldn't make it here today. And then Erin is here. I know you're here. Erin has served with us for 3 years. Erin, did you want to speak or say anything really quick to the council?
No, I don't really have much to say. I didn't. But no, I've really enjoyed my time. I've learned a lot. I think the council is doing good work. I've seen a little bit of it come up, even in my own parenting experience with the kids in the schools. I do know that it's beyond what anything we do. It's all about the quality of the individuals involved. So give good tools to good people, you get good results. And I've seen some of that. I've even seen some things that I remember us talking about specifically in this. So I do feel like I may have had some impact, at least.
Good. We hope you do. That's our whole point, right? That's.
And I've pointed people to the website so many times, in the parents Facebook group I'm admin. So.
Wonderful. Well, we hope you continue to do that and share.
Absolutely.
And stay connected with us, and we're not going to take you off our communication feeds. So feel free. We hope to see you in some other things that we do in the future, and you can reach out to us anytime. Or even if you have an idea to collaborate on something, let us know. Okay.
Awesome.
And then Melissa, right? She also served us for 3 years, but she was not able to make it today. She had a conflict. So those are our individuals that we're saying farewell to, but not totally. We're just not going to see their faces on our meetings. All right. So we are still accepting applications. We extended it to the 28th. So you are the network that really can share this out to families and caregivers. So we're asking you to continue to do that and let them know that we are going to continue to accept applications through the 28th. Next slide. Okay, now we're to our takeaway. I believe Lisa Morales, you are our takeaway crew.
All right, I took some notes. We had a great discussion from the dyslexia parent group and the Parents for Reading Justice. Lots of great information about how parents have come together to advocate for their children's needs, information about the masterclass and parents' rights and how other parents can advocate. And I think, you know, just from my group, our takeaways from that and our next steps are going to be, you know, all the great resources that we have and we can share with the families we work with and know in our, you know, respective areas of education and life. So I think that was probably everybody's big takeaway from this is the plethora of resources that are out there and what a great way to make it easy for families to advocate for their children's needs. So that's important. Then we talked about the updates. Looked like we surpassed all the goals that were set for the grant funding, so that's great. It was interesting to see all the other projects that that the Family Engagement Center is working on that I might not have been aware of until then. And the idea of for the potential projects and funding. I personally saved the middle school family engagement pack because the middle school counselor for my kids' middle school goes to my church. So I've already sent her an email. Hey, check this great resource out. This sounds like a really great opportunity for the school. And then we had our breakout rooms. I was in the Tough Conversations group, which was a great group. I'd like to be part of more of that group in the future. So very, very good conversations I'm sure we're had in all of our breakout groups. And then the very important conversations about social media. And I think the takeaway when it comes to, you know, with understanding, monitoring, and buffering those negative impacts, we talked a lot about the importance of communication, modeling appropriate practices ourselves, education on what's important and how we can monitor these things and make sure children have the appropriate life skills, and establishing limits. So that's what we talked about today.
Man, Lisa, you're going to be my recapper every meeting.
Oh no, that's a big task. I bet somebody else could do a good job too. We have lots of smart people in this room.
You did fabulous. Thank you so much. I couldn't have said it any better myself. So Erin, do you have a line or two that you remember that you would like to share from the day that really stuck out with you or to you?
Okay, I've got a couple. I got one from that first breakout session about dyslexia, and then we're talking about you need contact, right? We're talking about resources, that if you're in a smaller district, right, that the resources are going to be fewer and farther between. And one of the statements that was made right as we were closing out kind of brought back in a conversation that we heard, something we'd heard earlier, right? That, that teachers are leaving the profession in droves. And this one more thing, right? Taking on, the dyslexia screening stuff, on top of their regular job. And that one stuck out to me a bit because, I don't like having extra stuff dropped on me. And I'm not a teacher. And then in the mental health breakout there was another good one, is that we were looking at the one pager for teens, and I forget her name, but she called out that all the examples were about daughters, not sons. And I thought that one caught me, because 2/3 of my kids are, right? So I do like, and they definitely are different animals.
That's a good catch. Thanks, Erin. We'll continue to work on those examples so they're more diverse for sure.
I think, and there was another statement similar to that about fathers, but I didn't.
This is why we need more dads on our council. So you need to recruit for me, Erin. Get out there, find some friends.
See, the problem is, the way the system works is that dads aren't allowed to have their
kids.
kids.
And you need to let them know that they are, and we're personally inviting them.
Yes, you're right, Kristen. They are around. They just need to be invited to the table.
That's right.
But I wanted to say Erin made a very good, and that was me, Erin. Thank you so much.
I know it was you. I forgot your name. Sorry.
That's okay. But I wanted to note something that Erin had stated earlier, which is a lot of times you don't see dads in like the preschools or the elementary schools. but they are welcomed more so by the education system in middle schools and high schools. And again, I think it's because of that discipline piece. You know, where a lot of times the systems look to dads to if their kids are misbehaving, but the question needs to happen in the schools. Where's dad at the elementary level? So thank you for that, Erin. I totally agree
And
with
actually,
you.
I'll add to that because I think a little differently about the exclusion of fathers in the elementary level is more about the makeup of the staff of elementary schools. You know, there are a lot more male high school principals, high school and middle school administrators, where there aren't as many, you know, male teachers or administrators in the elementary.
I think about the power of that positive or intentional invitation, you know, so that sometimes it's like they're doing as dads are doing just as much or fathers in that drop off and pick up, the communication with the teachers. But then when it comes to like nominating a room parent or something, then you start to see that difference in engagement. And it's like you need to have very specific invitations that are, I think, worded just as in a like targeted intentional way for fathers to be engaged at that slightly more like deeper personal level with the teacher, with the other staff members. So I love that.
Great. Well, thank you again, Erin. All right, next slide. We took this picture especially for you all the other day at our staff meeting on Wednesday. A little impromptu photo, but this is time if Barb wants to unmic.
Sure. Yeah, so well, here's the gang, and we were thinking about you, I think, and like Kristen said, hey, we need a photo of all of us for all of you. We appreciate your feedback when you're here and other times as well. So if there is a topic you want us to cover, something that you're looking for, something about the meeting that you didn't care for, you really liked, either way, we thrive on your feedback, all of it. So please feel free to reach out to us in the chat or after the meeting to let us know. We will, and some from my team, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're not going to do a survey after this meeting. You know, what we were realizing is that we were surveying you a lot, and really you were consistently telling us the same thing. So we thought, well, let's do fewer surveys but still be good listeners to you and let you know that door is always open. So then I think on our next slide, we want to just share that our upcoming meeting dates. So if you want to mark your calendars, we've got February 3rd, April 28th, September 8th, and then November 10th. And we want to really wish all of you a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope that many of you will be able to be with your family during that time. As you all know, we think that is important time. And so we hope you'll be able to really relax into that. And so here's how to connect with us as always. And we look forward to hearing from you next year and seeing you again soon. Thanks, everyone. And please, one more plug, help us to recruit new members, please, and help us to get our application for family members out.